Welcome into another episode of Discard for Magic. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron.
I'm your other host, James or Jexic, and today we're excited to bring back on not only Colby Dow,
hello,
as well as Joe Ellis.
Yeah, I'm here.
Formerly known as Joe Pinion, but he had to change it because there was actually somebody named Joe Pinion.
Yeah. A MAGA New York Republican who ran for Senate against Chuck Schumer.
Rough. Well, we're glad to have both of you guys back on. New year and new update.
new year, new me.
Everything's different now.
Including Summoner Wars.
Yeah, it's good to be on. How you guys been since our last visit? How's your tournament going?
I think Aaron's is going better than mine. We both made it to the second round, but I'm like 2-5 right now, and considering only 2 people advanced, it's not looking so good for Jexic.
Man, those tournaments are elite, huh?
Yeah, they're tough. I'm 3-1. My games are looking all right in the second half of the second round, so we'll see. We'll see what shakes out. I got 2 people undefeated in my group, so we're gonna have to make something happen if we want to move on.
Is your loss to one of them, or?
Yeah, my loss is to Physic.
Yep, we will see. We gotta get you guys into a final.
Yeah.
Well, he was already in the final and won for the deck building tournament.
That's right. So you've been there.
Only for deck building though. Never made a base one.
Base has more competition. There's more people playing it, so it's tougher to go all the way.
Yeah, it's still very legit.
Oh no, I'm not trying to diminish what Aaron did.
I was trying to
Sounds like
diminish.
you were.
Let's hop into potentially what you guys got planned for this year. Let's start off with new factions coming out. A couple have had different announcements, like the Spectral Conclave and the Black Sun Rebellion. I'm sure there's a couple more in the works.
We're working on Guild Wars right now. Jexic, you told me that you wanted the Guild Wars back, so I'm making it happen.
The only person who has asked for them. If you go the filth, swamp orcs, deep dwarves, we get asked all the time, but only one person has ever asked to bring back the guild dwarves, and they're coming.
In first edition, I like destroying the walls. I like that as a thing. I mean, I used to. I think now I'm maybe a little less fond of like the actual look on someone's face when they can't summon and they can't do anything.
You've grown as a person.
But back then, I was like, it's really cool when you just make it so they can't do anything. So I played a lot of cave goblins and the guild dwarves when they could destroy gates or walls.
Yeah, I feel like that's less about gate destruction and more about gate clogging these days in second edition.
It depends. There's certain matchups where like destroying all the gates is like your only way. We were just talking about Crimson Order. Sometimes the cave goblins, that's their only option, is to try to destroy the gates. But yeah, I feel like because they've got an extra gate in hand or in the deck, it's harder to make sure they don't have any. And there's more factions that have ways to summon without gates, it seems like, between the Phoenix Elves and
For sure.
Crimson Order and all these factions, especially like the Forged. Like attacking a gate against the Forged is a way to lose,
The current version of the Guild Dwarves have some gate hate, for sure.
Nice,
We'll see if it makes it all the way through play testing.
But yeah, but they can't be only that, because
Yeah.
just for the reason James is saying.
Well, it looked from the art that like it's kind of a mold of the 2 Guild Dwarf decks from first edition, because I saw some structures in there too.
It's another structure-oriented deck, which, engineering likes to be. Currently, the summoner has an ability called Expand that it grants to all adjacent. So, like, kind of like the chain that's created with the Storm Goblins, but he grants Expand, and Expand lets you build next to any building that has it.
Ooh,
So you can, like, create chains of structures and...
interesting.
That's cool.
Now, I don't know if that'll stick, not because it doesn't work. It does work, but we'll see if this is the deck for that ability. It seemed like just having something like Master Builder, like the Inventor does, works just as well for this deck. So I could see keeping it, or I could see saving it for another deck where we make it more central.
Him and his Engineer's redeploy ability, I think, is the more interesting ability in the deck, and that lets you, when you move them, you can either add a boost to them or spend a boost from them to pull an adjacent structure back into your hand.
That's kind of the light side of the deck, is the hand returning type of stuff.
Yeah, and so you're kind of pulling stuff up that's damaged to save it, or putting down a catapult for its launch ability, or you need something someplace else and it's better to pick it up to move it.
And the launch ability is launching units.
No, it's just a damage ping, but anywhere within 3 spaces, no sight needed.
Kind of like, was it the mortar upgrade? There was some upgrade in first edition that was like that for Bolvi, I think.
I think it was mortar, yeah.
Yeah, so we had a blast, but they're still just alpha, like we've been playing them in person here at the office.
Mm-hmm.
But they seem very puzzly and fun in their own thing,
Yeah.
which was something we were worried about, making them their own thing in light of, we've done some structure factions before.
Yeah, that's one thing I was kind of interested in, is like how you can make some of the tower defense ideas that were in Bolvi have kind of made their way into Sand Goblins and Forged, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see how you can differentiate this deck from those that came before it without being like, oh, it's just another structure deck. But hopefully it's cool. I think it'll be cool. I like Guild Dwarves. But the name, it'll be Olden again, because that's what the art looked like, was Olden.
Yeah, it's Olden. The art was very much like, here's what he looked like in first edition, do this.
And Dwarf the Dwarf is coming.
Dwarf's going to be there.
That's a name I complain about, and I ask, why hasn't he made an orc named Ock if he's so into dwarf?
I might. Don't tempt me.
Goblin named Goblin.
Maybe.
Goblin.
I do what I want.
Goblin.
Dwarf is a great dwarf name, and you'll never convince me otherwise.
They have been a blast in the games we've played so far. Some of those games were against the early copies, like the first off the print run copies we've got in from the Lizards and Wizards, which I don't know. I mean, they've been announced, so we've at least seen the summoners. But
previews are starting to happen.
Yeah.
Or at least Nick's writing them now.
So yeah, and if you ever listen to this podcast, you probably know more about them. Guild Dwarves will be with the Black Sun Rebellion, which probably everybody's listening has heard of them, the dragon-oriented deck, and they have done the impossible through playtesting, which is keep a giant, massive champion in their starting setup.
Yeah, it's been a to-do.
It's a fun deck, though. I've enjoyed playtesting that deck. That deck is a blast.
I just played a little bit at the start, and I was like, okay, they definitely found the fun here. Now it's just like figure out how to make this balance. Like, it's one of the easiest decks to explain to a new player, I think. You're just like, hey, have you ever watched How to Train Your Dragon? Or something like that. This is that. You're running around riding dragons, and it's just cool.
It's definitely a fun deck, and we definitely knew it was going to be a challenge to balance. The balance is kind of edge of the knife, because it seems like it's hard to tame the things you need to tame without tanking the win rate.
Yeah.
But we seem to be close.
Yeah, and so if we're talking about 2025, there'll be the dragons, and I don't know if it's going to be dragons and wagons or dragons and flagons.
Dragons and flagons.
Flagons, maybe.
So then for 2025, there for sure will be one more pair. Well, there should be at least, and then maybe a fourth, but probably not. We don't usually get 4 in a calendar year.
Do you know much about that, about the next wave? Have you decided which symbols are going in the next wave yet?
Well, it's always every symbol, right? Oh, which pairings?
Yeah, we're pretty locked down because we had a big one day when Nick was down here and with Donald, who's the company's best brainstormer.
Idea man.
We went through we kind of locked down a set of 6 decks that at least 5 of them had very clear ideas, and we're working through them. And I don't know which ones will come out first. I don't think we've played any of them, have we, Colby?
We haven't. I have a printed alpha version of one of them that we have not gotten around to play yet.
Tortugatron seems to think one of them might be the turtle guys, because he said like divine water fits with the deep dwarves or something. I don't know.
Is it the Deep Dwarf wave, or did you guys decide on a different?
Deep dwarves are not in this wave.
Oh.
Ooh, so it probably
that
won't
got
be.
pushed back.
We're burying the leaf again or whatever.
Yep.
No first edition factions in this wave, because deep dwarves are the only first edition faction left, I think.
Unless you want to make like all the alliance decks into decks or something.
Nah,
right.
we ain't doing that.
Or the mercenaries, but I don't
Right.
think that's good.
Ralul.
We're not going to repeat that mistake.
I think some of those factions could come back in a way, but just like be their own new faction now and give them a different name. Like we were saying, Raul changed his idea entirely a bit, but keep something,
Right. Yeah, there's still inspiration and fodder, but
Yeah.
the one that we haven't done, so this is just more of an open statement is not anything about what we're doing because we don't know what we're doing. But the sixth one in that wave we haven't figured out is divine air. And so one of the ideas we were throwing around is like, can we do something with Prince Elian or something in a rebellion?
Yeah, the true Phoenix or something like that.
Divine air makes me think of like angels or something, but that's maybe a little too cliche.
Yeah. Like, well, the birds have come to mind. They're probably more likely. And
Like another avian deck. Yeah.
Yeah, like they'd be heavenly somehow. I don't know. That's the one we don't know. The other 5 are pretty well defined.
I think if we did an avian deck, it would lean on Egyptian divinity.
Oh, I like that.
Ra.
Right.
Are you guys a fan of Ra, the game?
I like it.
I thought it was decent. It clipped along nicely and fairly straightforward. So yeah, I liked it.
One of the 800 Knizias.
We are huge fans here at Plaid Hat Games. Me and Nick.
Never played it.
And Donald. Well, me, Nick. I've always said it's the perfect game design. It's the greatest game design of all time.
Wow.
Wow.
You say that to Colby?
Wow.
It doesn't mean it's the greatest game, but it's the greatest work of design ever.
I feel like you have to get into what makes something great. Like Magic is probably the most influential design of the last 30 years or so. 32 years now. Ra's definitely clean.
It is clean, yeah.
Magic is the opposite of clean, for sure.
Yeah. It represents everything I love in game design, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And everything I value in game design from a personal standpoint. So you want to give Colby a little preview of the one you have printed out? We don't even know if it would be next, but it's at least the theme and who designed it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get some reactions. So the a little controversial. The next one is called the Thornhold Dray, and it is sentient squirrels.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now you say that as if the squirrels in our world aren't sentient, but that's quite a philosophical statement.
Yeah.
Anthropomorphic squirrels.
These squirrels build structures.
No, James. These are not human-sized squirrels.
Oh, okay.
No, they're squirrel-sized squirrels.
But they build structures. So are they like growth logic? Is that what they are?
They are logic growth, yeah.
Okay, that sounds cool.
They're saving up acorns and,
right.
They use boost, which...
The boost are acorns.
The booster... They're not literally acorns, but metaphorically.
Can they hibernate?
There might be a hibernate ability in there. I don't think so. Oh, wait. Not currently.
No, but of course we've got it. We've got it on the bear. So
they've only been played by Jeff Choice. I'm trying to think of if he's got like an online.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he's backcountry gamer. Yeah, we could maybe take that out if he doesn't want to. But I think I know what you're talking about. He designed a game for Isaac, right?
Yep.
Yep. He's a published designer.
And he wanted to design a faction, and Thornhold Dray, his baby,
cool.
He's tested them, and he got them to a place where we need to test them.
Nice.
We were fans. It's definitely a new new ground to go in squirrel territory. We've had skunks in first edition,
but they were humanoid skunks.
Humanoid skunks.
These are the squirrel-sized squirrels.
These are squirrel-sized squirrels. But they have clothes on.
They have clothes on. Are there units that are like a swarm of squirrels? Are there like multiple squirrels that are like a little swarm of them? Or are they just each like a little squirrel?
But the idea is that like together, they're Ewoks, together, strong.
Mm-hmm.
Are there, I'm sure you don't have art or anything for it, but is there going to be, because there's a lot of different color squirrels, are there going to be a lot of different colors to the art, I'm assuming?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that bit yet. Jeff did send somebody's little art page or Pinterest page or something where they taxidermy squirrels and put little fantasy outfits on them as an inspiration.
That's something I wonder, like, how do you go about like designing the art for a faction, especially one that's new? Like, do you just like how much do you let Martin go free with the design, I guess, of the units, or do you kind of have something in mind each time?
I don't really know how other people who are art directing for our company art direct, so I don't know how free I'm letting the artist be versus others. But yes, typically I try to provide as much as what that particular artist finds helpful. So Martin wants a pose. If I can do a pose, just so he's not falling back into his standard, library of poses that he's comfortable with,
Yeah.
He typically likes a pose in there. I typically have, go find some images of what the weapon should be. And it's really depending on how different the faction is, or I want it to be. Like the Sky Spirit Avians, I went into great detail about trying to make them look kind of dinosaur-y. It depends on the faction. The Spectral Conclave, we're going for kind of a particular look, Spirited Away, Studio Ghibli kind of thing with them.
And then with like the filth, it looked like you just kind of took a lot of the units from first edition and said remake these in your style.
Yes. That was a simple one to do because I felt like that was a strong suit of John Ariosa, or JJ's as he goes by now. He just was good with kind of character design for the filth. He kind of likes the gross stuff. And so showed him first edition art. It's this guy.
Overall, as far as, I don't know compared to other art directors, but just from a general population standpoint, I'm surprised how much work and detail goes into art direction in the company and how much work it is. It makes me think, like, anytime you see art director as a job title for somebody on a board game or video game, I think I kind of, that was a diminished role in my mind back in the day. But now I see that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually a lot of work.
Yeah, the Guild Dwarves, pretty simple. Dwarf-ass dwarves, is the direction. But yeah, if you're trying to do something that's kind of
like the Isle Vekit or something, yeah.
Right, that's kind of...
Or the Gropes, or...
Yeah, I build a Pinterest page usually that I'll invite the artist to, that I go out and find stuff that's that feels like what I want. With Martin, he's so established. He like gets what the visuals of Summoner Wars are, so that helps too. I definitely like the artist to have a say in what the game looks like. I don't like to over direct them either.
Have you ever had an art piece that you like weren't satisfied with, that you had to send back, or like have them rework a little bit? Does that like ever really happen?
Typically, I don't have to have anybody rework something from scratch because art is a process, and part of that process is a sketch. So we can, or for some, like for the event art, it's typically a thumbnail sketch, which is even a looser sketch for composition. Typically we can nip stuff in the bud there. Probably the thing that gets revised the most is, this pose is kind of cheesecakey, or this is drawing attention and representing different body types or stuff like that. You need to push on that. But again, the more we work with somebody, the more they get what you want, fewer revisions are needed.
Mm-hmm.
But typically, no, there's not a lot of revision process.
And like you said, it's kind of in part because you've worked with him so long on this project that he kind of gets what you're going for.
Yeah, in part, good art direction communicates everything that you're wanting, or that's important to you, or that you think that the artist might need particular direction in, so that they don't kind of lean back on their defaults, like body type.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever like requested a piece and then thought that like it sort of limited your design? Like, for example, you requested like a art that you're like happy with, but you requested like a melee weapon, and then you're like, man, I really wish we could change the summoner to like range and playtesting, but like that's not really where the art looks.
Yeah, sometimes we do get penned in a little bit by being ahead of the playtesting on the art, but art takes months to get through a faction, so we kind of have to be, so that way the art is wrapping around the same time the playtesting is wrapping. Yeah, we do get pinned in a bit. We always do events last and don't do them until at least they have some playtesting on them, unless there's like a lot of confidence that direction on a piece is generic enough that we're going to be able to work around it.
Right, that's always a discussion that Colby's asking Nick in the chat, is how solid are the current events feeling? And it's funny, sometimes an event, the art needs to be sort of hyper specific, like it's very obvious what's happening, and sometimes it's like, I don't know, what's the art for this supposed to be?
Yeah, that's some of the most challenging art direction. It's just figuring out, what is this? Like, what should we be showing here? Events are definitely harder to art direct than characters a lot of time, because yeah, you're trying to set a scene that describes the event, and that's not always easy.
Yeah, but we're grateful that it's not just a big picture of the summoner's head like first edition.
For all of them, and then it's like, wait a second, the Cave Goblins one where every single one said goblin something, so like if you'd have to make sure you read the event every time. So hard.
The event art for second edition too, I think, has been just getting better and better. It feels like with each one, like the first ones in like the master set are great, but like Some of the later ones have been so phenomenal. I remember when the Vargraph came out, and I was like, these are epic events. Like, all of them. Like, only one's actually an epic event, but they're all epic events.
Yeah, we switched to B Castillo Rojas for that does most of the event work. At times, she has dipped out to work on other projects for us, like Wandering Galaxy, and I had Martin doing events. But some of my favorite events are B's, and I feel like we've watched her grow as an artist because I think she came in as a fairly newbie artist when we first were picking her up. We've seen a lot of growth as an artist out of her just in the relatively short time we've been working with her. She definitely takes a lot of pride in her work, doesn't phone it in ever. Yeah, she's done some of my favorite pieces, like that Swamp Orc piece where Emerge.
Oh,
That
yeah,
orc's
that's a
coming
good
out of
one.
the water, the coloration on that, and it's just kind of like, I love that one. That's probably my favorite piece in Summoner Wars.
Did she do the Crimson Order event art too?
Yeah, yep, that was her.
I like those, like Death Ride and
Crimson Order was definitely a faction where the art direction was meaty. Definitely wanted to do vampires in a way that wouldn't scare people off of
playing Summoner Wars.
playing into vampire tropes that people would become tired of.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the divine symbol and like religious connection to the Eucharist and stuff. I wanted to do like a lot of cool stuff with that. So the more hype I am about a factions theme, the more the art direction, the more goes into the art direction probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's the events, particularly I'm looking at Call Forth, in some kind of building, like a chapel or something. Mm-hmm. You can actually see some kind of artistic window in the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they've got like the chalices full of blood and stuff, and there's some names in there that are kind of usually associated with
Sekhmet,
Catholicism. And
I think Summoner Wars takes some extra direction also because it is this very defined world that is not our world, right? So you don't ever have a cross, right, in that right. art, because that would be an explicit reference to something in our world.
Right, but obviously, anything that is depicting religious and Western culture takes notes out of culture that's developed around Christianity, for sure.
Gotta come from somewhere.
That kind of dovetails into another question we were going to ask later, which is, when can we expect, like, official lore?
There's a lot of official lore in the new website, which is all on your list of, is the new website going to ever happen? Like, it is on the 99-yard line, and there's so little left to do to push it through. I went to put in some new articles to, like, update it, because it's been so long since we created it. The articles have come out since then, and ran into some database issue with uploading the preview images for articles or something that we're waiting on some solve for. And then we got to get like a couple of the new factions in there, and
just run the tush push, get it across the finish line.
I'm trying to give Josh Allen the ball and push him in, but we got this Wandering Galaxy app that we're still finalizing. Joe's been working on the tutorial for that, so sometimes other stuff just has to take precedent over.
Why do we have to work on other games? Totally unfair that there are other games besides Summoner Wars.
Yeah, well, because we have to support more than 2 staff members.
I heard Ashes has a new big announcement too.
Yeah,
we announced the Kickstarter. Go follow it.
Yep. There's not a lot of information because it's just like a preview, but there's a little in there. We let you know, like, it's all compatible. We're not doing another Reborn where it's like we went and changed a bunch of cards and you're gonna have to get an upgrade kit. It's all fully compatible.
But it will also be a new place for a new player to, like, just buy this thing.
Right. That was a big important part of it, is a new core set, so you're not buying multiple stuff to play all the versions. Because one of the things that, to my knowledge, is unique about it is that you can play PvP and PvE with the same deck. We wanted to get that all into one core set.
Yeah, but there's all kinds of exciting things related to that when it all rolls out that are very pushing the envelope things we do in the industry, and it's going to make a bunch of Summoner Wars fans jealous and be like, oh, we want that. That's the tease.
I don't know if it will. Because some of the stuff is very specific to pleasing Ashes fans.
That's true.
Are you still planning on a Steam release, and is there any, like, general timescale on that? Or
there's definitely no timescale.
There's no timescale, and if we get to it, at this point, it's kind of like if we get to it, if we can spare enough of Joe's time, and if the project ends up being contained enough. But I mean, the reality is that the current user base around the game is there to play asynchronously. The question of can we capture a whole new audience for live connected play? The games typically last up to an hour or even more in some cases. Does that audience even exist? And is it big enough to make doing the project worth it? We are obviously hoping for a lot of new audience in making an app, and we found some, but it didn't go crazy or anything. It's really about what does the app exist for? And I think right now, the most value that we get out of the app is probably the physical subscription. Those people getting it free, those people staying satisfied, staying playing.
Right, supporting the community, the core community that's there.
Right. That's, I think, the biggest value of the app right now, rather than as its own source of revenue. It's pretty much if we get Joe through all the more important stuff to the company, then he can turn his attention back
Yeah,
to it.
I still see it happening.
I don't think like this conversion to Steam is going to be that difficult, but we kind of have to build in a whole new game mode, like turns or even phases need to have timers on them and stuff to keep stuff moving so people don't end up locked in an hour match where the other person's left.
As someone who likes playing live, the only thing I'm a little worried about is the turns with Brub. If it's like on a per turn or per phase.
Hey, maybe that's a backdoor nerf for Brub.
Because if I gotta hit yes attack or reroll, it's like if I've got 16 attacks
Oh my
going in.
God.
It'll probably be less about a phase timer, more about an input timer.
If it's an input timer, then Brub will be fine. But if it's like, oh, you got 10 seconds to do your attack phase, then I might be in trouble.
Well, 10 seconds is.
But I mean,
James, you'll just have to hit move on after the 20th attack.
the big thing that I've found is that because I've been playing in a live league where we schedule our own 45-minute games, and that's been very fun.
Mhm.
I very rarely even use that 45 minutes. I often use.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If we have like turn around timer or phase timers or whatever, or input timers, like
Yeah.
the 45 minutes is already enough to get people playing a lot faster. So who knows how much that'll do. It's definitely a different game when you can't think about it for a day before making a move.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And a good game at that. I love the live play stuff. It's just about wanting to keep the company alive and healthy. And so having to choose the path that we think is going to be best for the company rather than, the thing that I would most like. Because I want to be playing on the Steam Deck for sure.
Another along that same lines, there was someone from the community who asked if mods, and I know you're not to the point with the Steam release, but if mods will ever be something that you would envision with the Steam release.
I have to look into that because I know I've used mods on a Steam game, but I don't know much about it from a publisher developer stage. So I don't think I'd have an answer for that right now.
Yeah, I don't know if we would have to create like a mod tool or environment or I don't know much about how that works. We just release the code and people play with it. I don't know.
No, I mean I think it's people do it. Like they figure it out. I think is the idea, but
I know there's a lot of figure it out, but there's got to be some action where you're giving them access to something.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I have thought about from time to time. I've thought about, and this would be interesting to very few people, but probably non-zero amount of like maybe when I'm coding the Guild Dwarves, just popping up on our Twitch channel and doing some of the coding and talking through what I'm doing, things like that.
If it's not too much work, the mod thing is interesting because I don't think we need more factions personally, but if somebody has fun making them, great. But I'd also be interested to see what other kind of like quality of life things they put in that we could just steal.
Yeah, my main question there would be, are we able to reliably protect the online game and keep it fair? You know what I mean? Are we reliably able to detect if there's a mod, different things like that?
There's got to be tools in place for that. But how long does it take to interface with the tools and all, everything's a value judgment.
Mods might be of limited use if people want to do balance patches or something like that. That's like the community is like, just because you have a mod, it's not going to be easy to play that online because,
we already have a limited user base. Dividing that user base further would be a bad idea.
Well, I mean, technically, like it's not like Civ or something where it's more peer-to-peer. You are going to a central server that is running the game itself also. So you can't tell the server something that's not true. The server is going to say, no, that's wrong. It's this. This is the result, Yeah, like Colby said, there's quality of life mods. There's all kinds of stuff like that. So
Maybe it would be possible to do like mods only in private batches or something.
You know what? I'd love to see somebody mod more animations into the game so that I could take all those.
Yeah, that's
I'd
true.
love to have more animations in the game, but again, it's a value judgment.
Let me know if you would be interested. I'm talking to the listeners. If you'd be interested in me doing some of the coding on Twitch for a new faction coming up, if you would pop in and see what I'm up to.
I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think more interaction and stuff would be cool. Are you guys gonna do a game when the Isle Beckett and the Spectral Conclave come out? Are you gonna do another live play
Of
the
course,
new
it's a
faction?
tradition. We can't break tradition.
Yeah, for sure.
Can we expect any other streams of Colby, like the time that he leaked most of the Spectral Conclave?
I don't even know how much the Spectral Conclave
I
resembles.
think they've changed
that
a lot
leak.
since then, but
Yeah.
people still got to see the art, and it got people excited, I think, about stuff.
Again, value judgments. It's been a particularly busy time in the company's life, and so yeah, I just had to kind of let that go. It just didn't have a big enough audience to merit the amount of time that it took me to time out of the middle of my day to do it.
Mm-hmm. Changing gears a bit, I know Joe wanted to talk about this. Were you able to pull stats for some length of time?
I have some stats for you guys to discuss.
Awesome.
Joe's favorite thing to do.
My matchup table is not working.
Oh.
But first thing that I know people are definitely interested in that I got after a week or two of changing the Deepwood Groaks, I had looked at the stats. So before the change, they were at 56.8%, quite high, probably the highest, I think. Wait, no, looks like the filth are very, very high in 2024 on.
But I haven't heard a lot of complaints about the filth.
No,
like I did about.
well, they're very new, so it's somewhat of a small sample size.
Gotcha.
That's only about 4,000 games.
People had said they thought they were strong, but
Yeah, a lot of people have
Yeah.
said they're strong, and a lot of the top players have picked them in the tournament, so it doesn't surprise me to hear that they're strong.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at this, yes, they are very strong. I'll have to be interesting to look at the matchups eventually, but they are at 57.2%, which is really on the high end of what anybody's been ever in general play.
Yeah.
It also takes some time to figure out how true those stats are too, because counterplay strategies and then developing the play of them strategies and what wins out to be the strongest at the most elite levels.
yeah. And I don't think like some of the other factions who have been strong in the past have had like more negative player experience, whether it's like the Seers or whether it's Fungal Dwarves often get a bad rap because if they can just snowball. But I don't feel like Filth have that, so I don't know if there will be, even if they remain one of the stronger factions, I don't know if there will be as much pushback because I feel like there's not really a negative aspect to playing them. I mean, maybe people don't like a bomb playing against at some point, but who knows?
Even Crimson Order gets more complaints just because of infinite.
Because some people just don't like the long game or like too many devout cultists being spawned, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, which is understandable.
But it sure does feel good when you get that default countess back when you're wielding the Crimson.
Oh, 100%.
The Groaks, before we put Hecatea's nerf in, they were at 56.8, which is, like I said, that's on the very high end. That probably would be the highest ever, if not for the filth that I just saw. And after a couple weeks, they were right around 50%. I just ran the numbers right before this podcast, and they're at 46.9%.
So they overcorrected the other way.
Just since the change.
That's just since. No, that's only games since the change.
Okay.
Which is not completely clean, Well, actually it is. That's all games started after the nerf.
Okay.
Of course, there are some games with the nerf where mid-game your ability changed from before.
Yeah, that hit some people. Or there were some tournaments going on where, like fan tournaments, where it got changed in the middle of the tournament. It's like,
yeah. Oh well. Yeah, I don't have like versioning and like different rule sets.
So, are you worried that it might be an overcorrection, or what do you think?
Well, it's sounding like it might be.
Yeah, they're down 3%. I mean, another data point is the tournaments, where in the top tournament, let's see, what are they? They are 19 and 18. So they're a little underchosen. So that tournaments can be very hard to interpret. It's low sample size.
And there's
And
changes to
it's
factions and stuff. So
And the
changes to
stat lines can be
factions.
very different between a tournament and general play. I don't know if
Right.
that's still true. It was definitely true early on. At this point, how much of general play is also the same people that are in the tournaments? Probably stacking up the most games.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment.
Oh, I didn't realize that was part of the.
There are some people who play mini games of Summoner Wars. I'll just say
And it's
that.
not James, I'll tell you that. James has never played a game of Summoner Wars.
And then the other thing, of course, is that there's selection bias in tournaments. I mean, there is in general, but even more in tournaments. The Deepwood Groaks are nerfed, so only the people who are, really have thought through and decided they can win with the nerf are the ones picking it, for example.
I think there's going to be a bit of a relearning process for the Deepwood Groaks because the change does obviously change how you play the faction, and you have to be more mindful about where your boosts are going and when. I think there might be a bit more of a learning curve to the Groaks now than there was before.
Very true.
They might still have a high ceiling that hasn't been realized.
And in the B tournament, so the non-platinum users, they're 4 and 11, which is even smaller sample size, but it feeds into that narrative that maybe they're still okay at top level play, but they're a bit rough otherwise, which is, so it's kind of similar to the fungal dwarves.
Which is fine. We're going to have different factions with different
Right.
complexities.
Yeah, the fungal dwarves are very, very similar to that. But
I think the change, I liked one aspect of the change because I think it leans more into the potions, and I think that is my favorite part of the Groak deck is brewing big potions and just watching them change the game.
that one change really had a knock-on effect on almost every card in the deck, which is
that was
cool.
the strategy. The idea was if we're going to do a change, if it sticks in digital, we're going to eventually print it for physical. The change that was needed was impact multiple cards, but we don't want to print a bunch of cards, especially commons.
They just literally won't fit in those shells.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why the High Elf and the Deepwood Groaks packs are fatter packs, thicker shells. But we still run into a card limit there.
I guess the one possibility to look into further, if you want to, I guess, is to maybe change the starting setup for Hecataya, if we could get one that is good. Although starting setups are so volatile in terms of controlling things, but it seems like that's potentially one other change you could make because it's on the same card.
It's on the same card, and
Definitely
then
aware of that.
I've gotten emailed basically, we'll consult. What should we do? Me and Colby don't really know. We're gonna be leaning on the feedback of Nick and the playtesters, but I know that there's
and
possibility
the
of
because the changes are out in the community.
But I know there's possibility of maybe there's 2 phases you can do it in, once per turn. But there's things like that. So they're not finalized. Let's put it that way. We haven't shipped them off in a pack yet or anything. So interesting data point to see today.
Yeah, if it ends up being too much, it might be interesting to have it. I don't know how much that changes, but if it was also just in the attack phase, because then warriors would still be more active, but Heck would have to be close enough that you couldn't move away after in the move phase. With the original, you could shift boost during the move phase and then move Heck out into another section or into another attack area and get more value out of it.
Yeah, we've gone from just wild flexibility to a very, very straitjacketed version. I don't know. We'll see.
It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Any other interesting or surprising stats you've got, or did you figure out how much?
Yes, the big thing you guys asked for was, let me see, where are they?
Who's played the most?
Yes.
Yes, the player stats. All this is gameplay, but we do have a new number 1.
Ooh.
Literally by 9 games.
Oh man, that's a gap you could make up.
It is. Past it was Hemlock or Snaug or something. I think it was probably Snaug.
It's Hemlock last time.
This is all time. So our new champion, who has played 5,297 games, is your Discard for Magic co-host, Jackson.
Wow.
5,000 games.
Pretty
That's
nuts.
a lot of games.
The highest of all time.
I started playing more after the 45-minute queue opened up.
Yeah, that's probably what helps, is having the shorter games. You get more in.
And I started playing more Wayfarers who just don't play as many turns.
Nice. So in comparison, Aaron VW8 is way down there at 23rd overall with only 2,000 games.
Jeez, I gotta crank those up. Those are rookie numbers.
We are up to over 8,000 players have played an online game,
Wow.
which is kind of
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people who've gotten involved. 8,079 players at this point. Of course, with the app, probably if you include single player games, it'd be much larger number, but it's unknown really.
Oh, we started doing something with the printings of the new faction decks where that backer card on the other side of it is an ad and a QR code for the app. So hopefully there are still people out there that are getting physical
Nice.
Summoner Wars that don't know about the app that will now know about it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that we weren't doing it. But yeah, the second place players, because I've never heard of them, but it's like JJ Limek.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, so I don't know who that is.
My guess is they're European based on when I run into them.
Wow. Some real sleuthing happening here.
But then, yeah, other than that, it's names that I recognize anyway. Of course, this is all time. I get, if it would look kind of different for sure. Though you two would probably have a bigger lead if we just limited it to more recent games, probably because you've surpassed Snaug and Hemlock as it is. So
yeah, I know. I'm sure Magnifico's played a lot of games, probably up in the top 25 or so.
I would think probably top 10.
Yeah, top 5 actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. I don't know if let's see. I don't know if I can find. I mean, me and Colby, our names would be so low. The top person in the company is Nikki. She's actually plays the most by far.
Nice. All those Phoenix Elves games.
She might be the most played Phoenix Elf player.
That might go to Morning Time. Morning Time's played a lot of Phoenix Elves. That was the one who won the Gen Con tournament a couple years ago.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah, are you guys planning to do another Gen Con tournament this year?
Oh, I think for sure. Yeah, Nikki's up to 629 games. That's impressive.
Nice.
Very impressive. But yeah, we'll do a Gen Con tournament, right? We wouldn't wouldn't skip that. That's always fun.
Unless we goof it up.
Right, we have to submit the event and get it approved.
Yeah, it's gotta be
we're not in
approved.
total control. Yeah, Colby only 307 online games, so Nikki's double you.
Donald, I assume, probably has about 30 games played. So.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
I feel like there's an issue with the way the notifications work that I think I've brought up to you before, but it's not been resolved. I get a notification when it's my turn, but I don't get the little dot with a number in it letting me know how many notifications I have not addressed yet. Like the app, it has the little dot on it, the red dot.
Oh,
right
that's true.
corner.
Like on the app itself. Yeah.
Right.
That is correct.
So there's no ongoing reminder that like, hey,
you've got 8 games going on, Colby.
it's time for you to take your turn in 2 games.
Okay, it's not urgent enough if it's only one game. Is that what you're saying?
Well, or one.
You need
It's
a
just like
degree.
if I get a notification, it's in a list with all sorts of other notifications. It's easy to forget that you got that notification because you were busy at the time and you don't have any ongoing reminder that it's still your turn.
You're saying there's more to your job than just playing Summoner Wars nonstop?
There is, yeah.
Oh.
A lot of figuring out which numbers to be afraid of.
I don't have too much else for you guys. Like I said, my matchup table's broken, so I'm working on that. Running these stats was a little easier today because I've switched everything over to Postgres from MySQL. It's much faster.
Well, if you get the matchup table fixed by the time we release this, maybe we'll see if you can drop it again and people can speculate about.
Or maybe we could also get questions about stats specifically, and maybe we could do in a few weeks a stats specific episode.
Sure. I'm sure if I ask the community for stats questions, I will get 180 stats questions. So.
I only have 2. What is the largest discrepancy in a matchup? And what is the closest matchup between 2 factions?
We probably discussed that in the last episode.
Yeah, but factions have released since then.
Yes, that is true.
Is Shimmer Sea Fae the largest discrepancy? No, it's not. Last time it was Fungal Dwarves and Storm Goblins. And it was like 80-20 Storm Goblins.
Yeah, storm goblins can really fuck up some fungal dwarf clusters.
Yeah, Storm Goblins love those factions that clump up, like Crimson Order and
Well, and fungal
Dwarves.
dwarves, they clump up and they're trying to protect their back row stuff that he can just pass through.
I will say, since we mentioned the Filth's win rate, the Chosen Grove are, after 3,000 games, are right at 50.07%.
Ah, we nailed that one.
Well done, team.
Nice.
I think the people suspect they're weak, which they might be at a higher level. There's always that caveat.
I don't know. Physic took him in the tournament, and I don't think has lost with them, so...
What are the Wayfarers at, and how many of those games were mine? I'm just kidding.
Wayfarers, I mean, this is since the beginning of 2024.
Okay.
So it's, it's over several contexts, unlike the new factions. But they're at 49.8. Now, how many times have you played them? I don't know. That would be another database call. But those are the kinds of questions we can answer in a full stats episode if we get all the questions.
Yeah, the questions are going to be everybody wanting to know their personal.
Yeah. I'm just going to give you a list of like 200 usernames and you'll just have to...
The tricky thing with the 5,000 games is I don't know how I did in the past. Like, I can't just look up one faction and see all my history with it, Because
I know.
Because I've rotated through factions, so sometimes I can look at it and be like, oh, I've never played this faction when I know I've played it, but I played it like a year ago.
I know, yeah. I still have the limit to 1,000, which over time I'm feeling that's more and more justified because database calls aren't...
It takes data. Yeah.
Yeah.
They ain't free.
Well, it's not so much. It's more than anything. It's about time, how long the request would take.
Yeah.
If I had to look through, we've got 200,000 games since the beginning of 2024. Yeah, so I don't know. Probably overall, it's probably double that or something. It's getting to be quite large. So
yeah, I think we just got to nerf James because there was that lull in tournaments, right? And in that lull, he had played over 1,000 games, so he didn't have any tournament games in his games anymore. He had gotten so far past. Well, guys, it happened again. We spoke to Joe and Colby for way too long, and so this is going to be part 1 of 2 parts of podcast episodes.